Hi there. Well, we're going to continue talking about electrical theory a little bit here. Let's start looking at the fundamentals. There are three main components that you need to know about to get started here and to get going on your technician class license. And those are voltage, current, and resistance. And there's a really great little equation that we can use. You're going to see questions, and you may have seen them already in your book, that say, if you know there's this many volts and this much resistance, then what's the current? Or if you know this is the current and this is the resistance, what's the voltage? Well, that's what this is all about. This little pie chart here is our guide for knowing how to figure that out. All it is a simplified equation. So if you're into algebra or whatever, of course, this is just going to be E equals IR, or voltage, which is E, equals current times resistance. Remember, when variables are next to each other, we multiply them, and when they're above or below, the one on top gets divided by the one on the bottom. So, if we wanted to find, let's say we want to find current, well, current is going to equal, well, we cover the current up because that's what we're finding, and we find that volts is over resistance. So it's going to be E over R. So current equals volts divided by resistance. Voltage divided by resistance. Okay? And if we want to find resistance, we're going to do the same thing. Cover the R. What do we have? We have E over I. Resistance equals voltage over current. So, you can do, you can come up with all sorts of different ranges of these as to depending on what information you're given and how you're going to solve for those. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about how these are measured. Each item has its own unit of measurement. It's much like weight. You're going to measure usually by pounds, and if you have liquids, you're going to measure maybe by liters, or gallons, or ounces. So, the same way that we've used different measurements in other aspects of our life, well, the same thing is true in electricity. For voltage, the way we measure it, well, that's easy. That's volts. Okay? Now, current is measured by what we call amperes. Amperes. More commonly known as, and probably the way I'll refer to them from here on, is amps. Okay? And resistance is measured by ohms. Alright? And this is actually, these are variations on Ohm's law, is where we get a lot of the theory from here. Okay? So volts, amps, and ohms. Those are your three things. And this is something you're going to need to memorize. And it actually will pay off. I discovered after learning a lot of this stuff, it actually really helped with some things around the house and whatnot. So it's good to know. Helps you learn how to use your volt amp meter and things like that. Voltage is volts, current is amps, resistance is ohms. Just memorize those. Write them down. Learn them really good. So that means if you know how many volts you have, and you just need to know the EIR, because that's just the way they do this. Again, it's something to memorize. So if you know how many volts and you know how many ohms, you can find how many amps. And so when we come back, we'll look at a couple of examples on how to solve for voltage or amps or ohms after this.